So we have seen how to create a histogram by hand. We've seen how to create a histogram on StatCrunch. So earlier when we first started talking about histograms, I first called it a frequency histogram because we can also show a relative frequency histogram. A relative frequency histogram is going to have the same shape and like dimension. It's going to look almost exactly the same as a frequency histogram. The only difference is that the vertical axis this time would be measuring the relative frequencies, not the actual frequency. So the vertical axes would be showing the proportions or the percentages. So just as a quick example, I want to show you what I mean by that. So here's the histogram that we created for that previous example, and now I want us to look at a relative histogram for that same example. So here is that histogram. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to graph and I'm going to go to histogram again. I'm still interested in doing stuff with my cost column, so I still have cost selected, but under type, I'm going to change it from frequency to relative frequency. That was under type. I changed it from frequency to relative frequency. The x-axis still shows cost, so I'm saving that as my horizontal label, but for my y-axis label, I'm no longer showing frequency. I'm now showing relative frequency, and this is still, the title is still out of pocket medical cost. And I'm going to click compute. So notice how these two histograms look very, oh wait, and I think I need to make sure I still start at 155 and have a width of 36. Okay, that class width, make sure and put that in. Okay, now I'll click compute. So notice that the two histograms look pretty much exactly the same, and they should. The only difference is that now on the vertical axis, we're seeing relative frequencies. They're showing us the proportion instead of the count. Instead of how many were in that class, they're showing us what percentage were in that class. So that is how we use StatCrunch to create relative frequency histograms. And now I have, in fact, I'm pretty sure that this is our frequency, our relative. Yeah, it is. So we actually just did example 5. I didn't realize that. So this histogram here, let's just copy this image and drop this into our notes. This histogram here shows us a relative frequency histogram for that class there. And again, remember that most of the histograms you'll be making in this class we'll just be doing on StatCrunch. I don't think there's any assignment where you're actually like making a histogram by hand and turning it into me. But if you were making a histogram by hand, remember that along this horizontal axis you would have either class boundaries or class midpoints. And those are the same class boundaries or midpoints that we computed earlier in this table here.